Hey everyone, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be going through the 11.2 homework quiz to help you with any questions that you've got. I recommend watching the 11.2 notes video first. Okay, on this first one, it asks us to multiply those two binomials, and like we learned in the notes, let me write this down quick. We just have to distribute each term through the other parenthesis set, meaning we start with the x and we distribute it through. X times x gets me x squared. X times a negative 1 would just be a minus x, or it's like a negative 1x. I don't have to write the 1. Then I multiply the 4, so I get plus 4x and minus 4. Okay. From here, I'm just going to combine like terms. So I have x squared. These two match, so they can combine together. Remember, I'm not changing anything with the powers. I'm just combining like terms. So negative 1 plus 4, I end up with 3x, and then I have minus 4. So there's my answer. That's what I would type in. So we'll type x to the second plus 3x minus 4. Same idea on number 2 right here. So I'm given 3y plus 2 times 8y plus 5, and they want me to multiply those together. So again, I'm just distributing the 3 to both terms. So 3 times 8 gets me 24. The y's multiply to get y squared. Then I multiply the 3y times the 5 to get 15y. Then I distribute the 2 through. 2 times 8 gets me 16y plus 10. From here, I combine like terms. Again, if you're kind of confused on what I'm doing, make sure you watch the lesson video first. So when I combine like terms, I still have the 24y squared. These would combine to get 31y plus the 10. So 24y squared plus 21y, or not 21, 31 plus 10. Okay, same thing. The difference on this one is now you're going to have letters on both the front and the first and the second term. See how we have a y and a z? So we're going to see how to mix those together. And it's really not that difficult. You just have to know what to do. 5y times another y gets us 5y squared. We've seen that. 5y times 7z, 5 times 7 gets me 35. Y times z just gets me y and a z. Then I'm going to multiply these together. I get negative 3. You can write zy if you prefer. I like to leave my letters in alphabetical order, and that'll make sure that my terms look the same because they are the same. I explained this more in the lesson video. Then we times these two together to get negative 21 z squared. And then from here, again, just like we've done on the others, we combine like terms. So we're going to get 5y squared. 35 minus 3 gets me 32yz. And then minus 21z squared. And then we'll type that in. And I accidentally typed all of that into the power. So we're going to type that again. To the second plus 32yz minus 21z squared. That looks better. Okay, on this one, we learned a special trick for this in the lesson video, so you'll want to check that out. 5 minus 6a, 5 plus 6a. So on this one, you can just distribute and solve it like normal. You'll get the same answer. But in the lesson, we learned a special trick. Notice how these are exactly the same. We have a 5 and a 6a, and the signs in the middle are opposites, a plus and a minus. When that happens, we learned that our middle terms will cancel out. So what we get instead is just the first one multiplied, which gets us 25, and the last one multiplied, which gets us negative 36a squared. So a little bit of a shortcut when they're matching but opposite. And we'll type that in. Okay, number 5, this is that idea of squaring a binomial. So remember, to square something means to multiply it by itself. So they want us to rewrite 5 plus 2w to the second without parentheses. That really just means to solve it. Okay. So what this really means when we square something is to multiply that something by itself. So we're going to times those two together. Okay, when we times those together, we get our 25 plus 10w plus another 10w plus 4w squared. Okay, right here. I know you couldn't see all of that while I was writing it. So then we combine like terms. We still have the 25. These will combine to get me 20w, and then I still have the 4w squared. And that's my whole thing. I typed that in. Okay, just more of the same. Hopefully today's homework quiz is feeling pretty straightforward. Every question's kind of the same thing. It's just different combinations to help you practice. So on this, now that we have some negative numbers, but that doesn't change anything. We just multiply like normal. Negative times a negative gets us positive 25c squared. Negative times a negative, we get positive 10c. Negative times a positive, we get negative 35c and negative 14. And again, we just combine like terms. So we have 25c squared. 10 minus 25, we get, or 35, sorry, we get negative 25c minus 14. 25c squared minus 25c minus 14. That's it. Okay. This is similar to one we saw in our notes, but it's actually a little bit bigger. This is two trinomials multiplying together, which we can do. So we have 2v squared plus 5v minus 3. And then we have v squared plus 5v plus 6. Make sure I write it all down right. So this is the same thing as what we've been doing. We just have more pieces that get to distribute. So I'm going to start with this 2v squared, and it's going to multiply by the v squared right here. I'm going to write these underneath so you can see them. 2v squared times another v squared gets me 2v to the fourth. Remember, I'm adding those together. Okay, then it's going to multiply by this one. 2 times 5, I get 10v to the third, because those will combine. Then I'll get plus 12v squared when I multiply that one. Okay, so those are my first 3 for that one. So I'm going to get 3 for each of these. I'll have a total of 9 terms. Okay, now the 5v gets to distribute. 5v times v squared, we get 5v to the third. 25v squared plus 30v. Hopefully that makes sense. I just distributed that all the way down. So the 5v has multiplied through. Then I multiply the negative 3. So I get negative 3v squared minus 15v minus 18 when I times all 3 of those. Let me zoom out so you can see. We have a whole bunch of terms here. Okay, but it's the same thing we've seen. We're just going to combine like terms. I'll write this. Hopefully you can see what I'm saying. So 2v to the fourth is still my very first term. That's the only one with a fourth power. Then I look for the ones that have a third power. It's these two right here, 10 and 5. So I have 15 v to the third power. Then I'm going to do all of my squared ones. I have these two, which gets me 37 minus 3. So I get plus 34v squared, if I did that right in my head. Then I have these that have the v, so 30 minus 15 would give me 15v, and minus 18. So I just combined like terms like we learned in 11.1, and then I type all of that in. Plus 15v to the third, plus 34v second, plus 15v, and if I added or subtracted something wrong, just fix it on yours. Okay. Okay, so those first 7 are what we learned today. The rest of these are review from 11.1. So if you missed that lesson, I recommend going back and watching that video. But I'll go through these really quick since I'm here. So remember, leading coefficient and degree they both come from the term with the highest power. So if we scan across this, we see that our highest power is the 4. So we have a degree of 4. So the leading coefficient is just the number on the front of that term. So we get a negative 3. Number 9, this is combining like terms. So remember, these are adding and subtracting in between, so you don't have to do distributing. You're just combining like terms. I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write mine without the parentheses. So since that first one is all positive, I get to write, by all positive I mean that out on the front there's nothing making it negative. 7w squared minus 2w plus 1. Okay. Then I go to the middle section. I have plus 5w squared plus 7w minus 1. Then the third set has a negative out in front, so they all switch their signs. Negative 2w squared minus 5w plus 7. They all had to switch. And from here, I just combine like terms. So I have 7 plus 5, which would be 12. 12 minus 2 gets me 10w squared. Then I look at the w's. I have a negative 2 plus 7, so I have 5 minus 5, meaning that those all just cancel out. That's kind of nice. 1 minus 1, those cancel, but I still have the 7, so I put plus 7. So my final answer will be 10w to the second plus 7. And hopefully I added and subtracted everything right. On this one, they want us to factor. Remember, factor means find the biggest term that you can pull out, and it's like we're going backwards of distributing. So we have this 10y squared plus 25y. So looking at 10 and 25, they both have a 5 in common. They also both have a y in common, so I'm going to write that down. Then what I have left over, if I take 10 and divide it by 5, I'm left with 2. And if I had y squared and I take a y out, I have 1 left. 25 divided by 5 is 5, and if I divided by y, it's gone. So my final answer is just 5y, and then in parentheses I have 2y plus 5, like that. And that's about it. Okay, this was number 1 on your homework quiz last time. You just need to combine like terms, basically. So we're multiplying everything together. So it's kind of like the distributing we've been doing, but you have all of these different pieces working together. So I'm just going to write things down in parts. So we have 7v times 2v to the second, x to the 8th times 3x squared. So our first step is going to be to multiply the numbers together. So I'm going to do 7 times 2 times 3. So I think we get 42 if you multiply all that together. You can use a calculator to double check your steps. Then what we have is we have a single v and then a v to the second power being times together. Okay, from right here and right here. So I get v to the third power. And if I look at the x's, there's an x to the 8th power and an x to the 2nd power. So we would get x to the 10th power. And that's that one. Okay, last question, number 12 is also review. This is just another distributing. We've done this a lot today. Okay, it looks different because they have the 8y to the 3rd on the back, but it really means the same thing, so just distribute it through. I'll write it down so you can see better what I'm doing. Okay, so it's distributing kind of like this. 8 times 7 gets you 56, and then you have the 3rd and the 2nd, so you end up with a y to the 5th. I'm going to type that in as my first term. Okay, then we times these two together. 8 times -4, you're going to get minus 32y to the 7th, right? Because there's 3 and another 4 would get you 7. And then we times these two together to get plus 32y to the 3rd. Because there's just the y to the 3rd. And that's our homework quiz. Please let me know if you have further questions. Have a good day.